What is up everybody, my name is Tyler Potts and welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be creating JavaScript animations, specifically a preloader. As you can see on the right of my screen right now, I've created a preloader that spins and it also blocks move inside of it, and then the loading text is going back and forwards. This is a very weird and ridiculous preloader, but I kind of like it, and it's just showing you how to use JavaScript to animate things in your scene, or on your web page, should I say. So we're going to start off straight away with some straight up from JavaScript all the way to CSS to the JavaScript. So the first thing first, let's create some new files. One of these is going to be main.css, and that's just good. That's fine. We can just keep that as that. The second one is going to be main.javascript, and actually let's open these files. And CSS is going to open. There we go. And then we can close this sidebar because they're the only files we need. So up in our head, let's link our style sheet. And this will be main. Oh, not ain. What is with my computer? So this is going to be our main CSS. So save. That's looking good. Okay. So we need a few things. We also need our. This needs to be scripts or. And basically we're going to get our JavaScript here, so that is all ready to go. And let's create a preloader. So this is going to be our preloader, and we're basically just going to, this is going to be our preloader, and we're basically going to animate everything in there. So to create the effect, we need a few elements. We need here we go. We need a blocks element, so we can add the rotate to the whole block. And then we need 3 different blocks. So we're going to times this by 3. And then we've got 3 different blocks. Nothing needs to be in them because they do not do anything but act as a visual element to our page. Now under here, we're going to add in, inside of our preloader, we're going to add in a paragraph which is equal to preload hyphen text. And in here, we're just going to start off with loading like that. And underneath, let's add a H1 which says my cool website. And this is all we need. So basically, this would be where the content is, anywhere underneath or other than inside this preloader. This is just going to be an element that overlays on top while the rest of the site is loading. So now we have this element. We can modify it. So in our CSS, or actually, let's have a look what this looks like right now. So we need to start up a live server, to do this. So let's bring, where is it? Come here, over it, there we go. Actually, what am I doing? I have an integrated terminal for a reason, right? Is it that one? That one. Oh, I can't remember the controls. How'd you open up the? Oh, there it is. I knew it was one of them. Okay, so now in here, I'm just going to say live server and just hit enter. And this should start up a live server for me. And bam. It's opened a new tab, but that's fine. Let's close this because that's all we needed. So there we go. So this is what it looks like so far, and it doesn't look like much. So let's add a little bit of styling to our element here and see what we can do. So I closed my CSS, and let's open main again. There we go. So now main.css, we want to start off with the body. We want to basically remove any margin or padding that gets defaulted by the browser. We also want a background color off, F3, so it doesn't look so bright and hurt my eyes as much. And we're just gonna have a font family of Roboto, Helvetica, and sans serif. Hit save, and there we go. Now it's looking a bit better. Let's now style the preloader. So this is the most important part of this tutorial because, it's the preloader, the thing we're actually doing. And we're going to say top 0, left 0, right 0, and bottom equal to 0. We're then going to display this as a flex box. We're going to justify content center, align the item center so we move everything to the middle, and then we're going to also add a flex flow off column so it will not wrap the blocks next to each other but instead on top of each other. And we're going to have to add a width of 100 vertical width and a height of 100 vertical height, or vertical viewport, sorry, not vertical. And let's give this a background color equal to 171717, hit save, and there we go. So now I think you can't see anything behind it. You could make this like a, no, you don't really want to. You don't really want to show anything behind it because the point of this is to hide the website while it loads. We need to add a transition to this though, so we can do 0.5 seconds ease out. So the reason I add this this transition is so we can animate this when we go to use JavaScript. So we don't have to add the transition in JavaScript, we add it in CSS, and that means it will, everything we change in JavaScript will do it over the course of 0.5 seconds, so half a second. Okay, so next up we need to edit the preloader paragraph. And the preloader paragraph, or what's it called? It's called preload text, isn't it? So we'll say preload text. We'll give this a color of our background color. Let's say a font size of 28 pixels. We want it quite large, and a font weight of 300. Let's hit save, and there we go. So now we're starting off there. Now, this is the more important part. We want to edit our preloader blocks, so our actual container element, and we want to set this to be position relative. So, because we're going to be using absolute positioning for our blocks inside of this, but we want to basically leave it out. Next up, we're going to change our width to 70 pixels and our height to 70 pixels. The reason for this is so our blocks have somewhere to move, and when it rotates it all correctly and everything's in the right position. And that is good there. So let's now do our preloader .blocks .block. And we're going to say position, and I'm going to set this to absolute because they will all be absolute positioned. A width of 30 pixels, a height of 30 pixels, and a border radius of 4 pixels, just to add some styling. Background color, oh, that's Copa. Color of my favorite yellow color. And again, we're going to add a transition of all 0.25 seconds and linear to this, although maybe we don't need that, but I don't think we need that for this one. But it's actually, no, we do need it. We do need it because it moves it at 2.5 seconds. Okay, after this we need to say preloader .block, and then we want to get the .blocks .block, and we want to get the nth child of 1. So the first element, we want to say top is equal to 0 pixels, left is equal to 40 pixels, and that is going to move it over to the right slightly. Oh, let's duplicate this twice now. So this is going to be the second block, and this is going to be the third block. And we're going to say in this one, it's going to be equal to 0, 0. And this one is equal to 40 pixels, 0 pixels. Hit save, and there you go. We've got our starting look for this. Okay, now before we get to the JavaScript animation part, I want to animate the rotation. And the rotation is going to be done in CSS because it's such a simple animation. There is no need to rotate it inside of JavaScript. So this one is going to be something super simple. It's going to be at keyframes. So like what we did in my last tutorial on CSS animations, if you haven't seen that, I suggest you go watch it because it has a lot of useful information in there. And if we go here, transform, rotate, and we're just going to set this equal to 0 degrees, and let's go up to 100, and this will be equal to 360 degrees. Okay, now over at blocks, preloader.blocks, we want to add a animation keyword or property, and this is going to have the name, which is rotate, how long it's going to go for, so 5 seconds before it fully rotates, and we're going to say ease in and out, and we're going to set equal to infinite because we want it to consistently spin. So there we go. But it's going to spin, it's going to slowly start, it's going to then slowly finish, and then it's going to go again. So it just has a little pause as it goes round. And that is the first part of our animation. Now we have done that, it's time to, so let's have a look here. So remember these elements, we've got a preloader block, blocks and a block element. And we're going to need to get each one of these inside of our JavaScript file now. So for starters, we need to get our blocks. Or actually, let's create a function called preload. Set this equal to a function. We could set this to an arrow function. I don't believe that will break anything. And then in here we'll say const blocks is equal to document.query. Query. I spelled document wrong. Query selector. And then this is going to be our preloader. Blocks. So every single element inside of blocks.block is going to be added to this element array. Now we want to basically, so we want to move it. So we want to start off with our top one. I'm just going to turn off that rotate animation quickly because I want to be able to explain stuff. So as you can see here, we have this first element, and to get this flowing, we want to basically move this element down one. We then want to move this, once this is finished moving, over to the right, and then this one up. And then we want to continue around. So this one will go over there and around like that. But so we have to go down first, then we need to go left, then up, then right. So that is kind of the pattern we're going for right now. So to do so, we need to do something with every single block, but we need to do them separately. So I'm going to say let interval. So we're going to have an interval variable. This is basically going to tell us how long before each element we need to run the next function. So we're going to do an arrow function called block and I. So we'll for every single block, so for the 3 blocks, we're going to run this function inside of here. And we're passing through the block element, so the actual each individual block and its index inside of the array. And then we're going to do a set timeout, and a set timeout basically allows you to run something after a certain period of time. Again, it's going to be an arrow function, and we're going to set this equal to, or we're going to say this equal to the interval variable we set up here. So for the first one, it's not going to be delayed at all. It's going to run instantly because it takes 0 seconds or 0 milliseconds to activate. And then we'll just go to log here, the block and its index. After that, we're then going to say interval, and it's going to be plus equal to 500. So once this, for every single block, it's going to be delayed by 500 milliseconds. And that is what we're doing here. So once the first one runs, so when we animate the first block, it will move down there. Then it will wait 500 milliseconds because we've added it on again. And then it will run this function over again. So if we open up our terminal and we reload this, it should now log each, oh, I forgot to call the preload function. So don't forget to call your function. Now hit save, and blocks.forEach is not a function. So we have here our blocks. What's gone wrong? Blocks.query. This needs to be all. Query selector.all to get every single one to make it an array. As you saw there, the first one called, then the second one, then the third one. So if we refresh, 1, 2, 3. You see how that does it sequentially? So 1, 2, 3. Reload again. 1, 2, 3. Every single time it reloads and it gives them 500 milliseconds. Look, if we change this to say 1000, so a second each one, it will go 1, 2, 3. And that does it after a second. So we want to set it back to 500. Now let's not log this. Instead, we want to call a animate function, where we're going to pass through the whole block and its index. And then we're going to do this somewhere else. So let's go under here. We'll do the function inside of this because I feel it can stay inside of itself. And we're going to pass the block and its index because these are all important to know which block we're starting with. So let's set the position of each block. So we're going to say position is equal to index. And now, so what we're basically doing is when we call each block, we set a timeout to delay it by 500 before calling the animate function, and then we'd set the position equal to index, and then this will continue on and on. So we've got let position equal index. We then want to set an interval, because basically this interval is going to run every single 500 milliseconds. So once these are all started to animate, it will then continuously animate itself every 500 milliseconds. And they will be, and because this is delayed, they'll be 500 milliseconds apart each time. So let's now pass through another arrow function, and this one is going to be delayed by 500 milliseconds. Now inside of our animate function, this needs to be delayed by 1,500 milliseconds, because that means once they've all started animating, so once this one's moved, this one's moved, this one moved, the first one will then move again. And that is how it works. So it needs to be the amount of time each block takes to move to add that delay. So where one moves, then the next, instead of it going 1, 2, 3 all at once at the same time. So set in full, and we're going to say switch. So this switch statement is going to take in the position variable, which means the position we're starting with, and we're going to make a case, and we're going to check for the first for the 0th position, so in the array, the first item in the array. And we know that the first item in the array is this item here because of how it's structured. So this block here is actually equal to this block here from what we start out in our CSS here. So what do we need to do for this first one? So we need to say the block.style.top. So we want to move its top position 40 pixels. So we want to move it 40 pixels downwards. So adding 40 pixels will move this block 40 pixels downwards. And then we want to say position. So the next position we want to go to is going to be equal to 3. We want a second case, which is equal to our first element, which is this one. And we want to move it. So we want to say block.style.left, because we're animating the left side this time. And we want to say equal to 40 pixels, because it's going to move 40 pixels to the right. Which doesn't make sense. I know you call left and it moves right, but it pushes it from the left, so it adds this spacing to the left side of this block, and that's kind of how that works. And then we want to break, but we also want to say position is equal to 0, because we want to basically go back. So once this one's called, this will go to the 3rd position, but once this one calls, which will be our second block when it first initializes, this one will go here, and then this will be in the same position as this, so it goes back to 0 to then move 40 pixels downwards afterwards. It's quite confusing, but you'll understand once we start getting it playing. So let's say block.style.top, and we're going to set this equal to 0 pixels. Oh, let's add that into a string. And then let's add the position equal to 1, because we want this to go back to the first one. And then let's add a break. And lastly, case 3, so when it's at the 3rd position, we want to say block.style.left and set this equal to 0 pixels. So when it's over here, this is the 3rd position right here, it then will move it to the left again. And again, this needs to be in a string. And we want to say position is equal to 2, because once it's here, we then need to move it up. And if you look at our case 2, that's how we move it upwards. And we want to break here, because else we don't want anything to be broken. There we go. And after 15 seconds. So now that looks about right, if we are right. So if we hit save and we watch. Okay, so it's pretty much there. It seems to be out of sync a little. Okay, no, that is fine. It's just the first one jumped a bit too early, which is probably caused because of this set timeout. Because it's equal to 0 seconds, it then only runs this as soon as it can, which then could cause some issues. So maybe we can try something else there. But for now, this works. This is working and this is animating. So now that is animating and we've got that sorted, we now want to add back in our rotation. So let's go up here and uncomment this out. Hit save, and as you can see, it starts rotating, it does a little speed, and it stops. So that is basic animation in JavaScript. We're basically just manipulating CSS, but in JavaScript. Again, there's many more ways you could do this. We could add in a scroll top, which is actually primarily done in JavaScript, where you would click a button like a link and it will scroll to that position on the page you want it to scroll to, with a linear or ease in out sort of vibe. Okay, so now that is done, we want to animate our text. So underneath our animate function, we want to say const preload underscore text is equal to document dot query selector, and this time we do just want query selector because we're only selecting one item, and we want to say preloader dot preload hyphen text. We then want to create something called dots because these are going to represent which position we are with the dots, and we're going to set this equal to 1 to start with. And now we want to set a set interval, so we want to set an interval which is equal to an arrow function which runs every 500 milliseconds. Now this gets a bit messy here, but we're going to say case 1 and we're going to say preload. Oh, sorry, this needs to be in a switch statement, sorry. So we need to create a switch statement which takes in dots. So like we did before, we're just following the same patterns we've done before, and we're going to say case 1, and now we're going to break here because we want it to break. And now let's say preload. Sorry, I've just realized how low that down is. Let's move this up and let's zoom in a little. Okay, so now preload, because this is going to get confusing, so we need to kind of cater for that. Preload text content. So we want to update the text content. We want to set it straight away to be the same as what we have over here. And we're going to set the dots equal to 2. Now let's highlight this and bring this down 1. We could just say dots plus plus for now. And now basically we want to remove one dot from here and put one dot at the end for each case. So we're going to do that multiple times, and we also want to set this equal to case 2, 3. Let's remove another dot, add it to the end. Let's double this up again. Let's go 4, 5, remove this dot, add that dot there, and then we go back to this dot because we want it to start going backwards here. And the final case is right here, which will be equal to case 6, and this will be equal to 2 dots there and 1 dot there, and then this dot here will be equal back to 1. So basically once we get here, we then want to move this last dot over to the left, and as you can see, it's already working. So it's going from left to right, from right to left. And that is kind of just another basic way we can edit text inside of this. There's probably a better way to do this, like instead of adding each dot here, we could add in some sort of loop what knows how many dots you want to add into which side. But at the same time, this is just as valid. It's not such a matter. If it was a much bigger text and we need to modify it a lot more, then this probably wouldn't be a good solution. But for now, it works. So okay, so the final thing is we want to basically, after the page is loaded, we want this to fade out. So underneath preloader, just underneath the set interval function we just did, we want to create a new const called preloader and set this equal to document dot query selector again, and we want to say dot preloader. We could have called all these variables at the top and then just used them inside our function, but for now this is fine. Now let's create a function called finished loading, and normally you would say once it's finished loading, set the preloader dot style dot opacity equal to 0, and then we want to say set timeout, so we want to give it how long it takes to fade out, and once it has fade out, so in our case it's 500 milliseconds, we want to say preloader dot style dot display, and we want to set that equal to none because we don't want it to be blocking anything on our page. We just want to remove it. And the reason we set it to 500, because in our CSS, if you remember, we added the transition property, which helps it transition. So when we do opacity, it's going to find this transition property and then it's going to smoothly transition it over 5 seconds and then ease out. And the reason we do that is because it allows us to not have to add in a transition property inside of our JavaScript, which would be messy. So here we say transition all, so all elements over 500 milliseconds or half a second, and we ease out, and that is why we set this equal to 500. Now if we call this finished loading and we hit save, as you can see, it pretty much goes instantly. So if we go here and we say, let's go down, I guess, okay, maybe this should actually come out of here because we want to basically be able to call this from anywhere. And we now want to say window.onload. So once the window is loaded, we say function, which then calls finished. You do a bunch of things and then we call finish loading. Hit save, and actually it instantly fades out, which isn't good. We don't want that. Normally your page would be bigger. It would have to load images and stuff and everything like that. So once the also, I think, does document have an onload function? Okay, I don't think the document ever loads, so maybe not. But yeah, so window.onload. So once the window has loaded, we want to fade out, but we don't want to do that. We want to say set timeout. And we want to say 500 seconds, or no, 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, we're going to finish loading like that. So now if we save, this will run for, let's close that. This will run for 5 seconds and then it will fade out. So like if a page was actually loading and it was a big website and you needed a preloader. Not all websites need a preloader, but again, you could add this animation to anything you want. It will then load. So let's stop finish loading because I don't actually want it to finish loading. I just want to show you this animating all the way. So as you can see, just a slow rotation. It starts off slow, speeds up, and then slows down at the end again. And that is basically what we want here. This sort of ease in and out sort of animation, Bezier. So it does this sort of effect where it starts off slow and speeds in, and it has a little pause before it continues again. And I think that's kind of cool. Again, you guys can try out whatever you want. Just use what you've learned in this video and pull it all together. So if you enjoyed this video, everyone, hit that like button. If you want to see more, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell because then you'll be notified as soon as my videos go live. And if you have any feedback or comments, drop them down in the comment section below, or head over to our Discord, which the server link is in the description. And don't forget to join us there. Other than that, guys, thank you for watching, and here are our Patreons. Goodbye.
Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back, I'ma keep myself on track. Keep my head up, staying strong, always moving on. Feel I don't belong to